Good afternoon. Welcome to the Everett Public Schools Board of Directors October 24th regular school board meeting. Please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
President Mason.
Present.
Vice President Andrews. Director Lassane.
President accounted for.
Director Mitchell.
Present.
Director Winta.
Present.
Student Representative Parikh.
Present.
Student Representative Pollock.
Present.
Thank you. Our first item of business is the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Cohn, will you please introduce tonight's agenda?
Yes, consistent with the plans established at your 2017 summer planning workshop, tonight's agenda contains several elements related to both the district's strategic plan and the board's annual goals. There is a segment this evening for routine business, a segment for board comments, a segment for strategic progress reporting, a segment for information items, a segment for new business, and a segment for upcoming agenda items. The following changes have been made since publishing the agenda. Item 8.1, Superintendent's report will be updated during the meeting as is customary for your regular meetings. Item 11.3, future capital bond planning. Presentation was added after the agenda was initially posted or published to you before being published to the general public. The board may elect to change the order of business by a majority vote of board members. Please note this is not the point in your agenda to request items be removed from the consent agenda. In no other respects was the agenda updated, and we ask your approval thereof.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. It's been moved by Director Mitchell and seconded by Director Lassane. Is there any discussion regarding tonight's agenda? Hearing one, we will move to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion carries and the agenda is adopted, which just takes us tonight to section 5.0 recognition. We have no recognitions this evening, so we'll move to the public comment period. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of involving members of the public in its meetings. Dr. Cohn, are there any requests for comments this evening?
There are none.
Okay, thank you. That takes us to the consent agenda. Would you please introduce tonight's consent agenda?
Yes, the board's consent agenda includes repetitive business items. These would include, for example, meeting minutes, personnel action items, expense vouchers, and recurring contracts. Sometimes the consent agenda will include items that occur less frequently but are of a routine business nature. The less frequently occurring consent agenda items are usually reviewed by the board in its Friday report, one or more weeks before the board meeting when those items are scheduled to appear on the consent agenda. This gives directors time to ask staff questions about those items or to consider discussion about the policy implications of those items. If a consent agenda item is removed by the concurrence of two directors, that item is placed in new business, and we automatically then renumber the remaining items. The board votes on the consent agenda in a single motion. By definition, consent agendas are not subject to debate. In the case of this consent agenda, the superintendent's office has received no questions or comments regarding any of the items. Therefore, the consent agenda is presented as published for your approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Director Lassane and seconded by Director Mitchell. Does any director wish to remove an item from the consent agenda and place it in the new business section of the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion carries. Which takes us to section 8.0, board comments. This is the time during our meeting where directors have an opportunity to share information about their work as a director or comment on district business. This would include student representatives as well, sorry. Why don't we start at this end tonight? If you have anything to share, please. Okay. No comments?
I do have a comment. One thing that I have been able to do is I attended a breakfast meeting at Woodside Elementary School, and I must say that I found them very delightful and very enjoyable and educational for myself as a board member, because we get to hear from parents from that particular schools and the concerns that they do have. And at Woodside Elementary, one, I noticed that all of the parents are very, very appreciative of the work of the teachers at those schools. And that is one of the positive things that I can truly say. But they also had a lot to say about planning for the future, in the future for their kids and the rest of the kids in the district. And one of their big concerns are the overcrowding situation. And I think our parents are telling us something that we need to heed, and that is to be, I guess you would say, forward-thinking, concerned about where the district is going, and strategic in what we do. And so I think we need to listen to what our parents are saying. And I do know that I have another one coming up. I guess it is tomorrow morning. I have another one. So I'm looking forward to hearing what those parents at that particular school has to say.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing what the parents are thinking and experiencing right now with us. Student Representative Pollack, do you have anything tonight? Director Mitchell.
Well, I'm actually going to tell a personal story. My nephew graduated high school unsure of what he wanted to do with his future. This was last May. He elected the armed services. I was not here at the October 11th meeting because October 13th he graduated from basic training in the Army. And he was a football player, he was a basketball player, he was in his school choir, he was in his school theater. So as we are going to be talking tonight about STEM and our bond plans for high school and our focus in this district on STEM, as well as our focus on the fact that every student in this district has the opportunity to experience art, music, theater, if they choose in their elementary school and their middle schools. Well, what I did not know about this military, my nephew scored so high on his entrance exams that there's an acronym for that I do not remember, that he was put into what's called signal training, which is the telecommunications of the military. That is their Wi-Fi, that is their interconnectivity of their computers, that is their satellites. He will be building them, he will be learning them, he will be growing them. Now, with all of his things, he was a consummate gamer, so that probably falls into this. But I do believe as we are getting all of our students ready for their college and career from kindergarten through graduation, we have talked about four-year graduation universities, two-year community colleges, that we always do stress the military, because there are STEM opportunities in the military. There's art opportunities in the military. The fact that the Navy band here in town has music. And the fact that we always have to look at all options for our high school graduations, and I use my nephew as the prime example of what those opportunities are out there, especially for our kids that are smart but just don't know what their future holds. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to just briefly share, last week I had the opportunity to attend the Everett High School conferences. And aside from checking in with teachers about your students and their work, which is great, it really is a community building and bonding experience when all the parents show up in the gym together and have an opportunity to say hello to each other. And then also to check in with teachers and put a face to a name, which you always don't get to do in high school. You don't get to tag along and go into all their classrooms. So I just appreciate that Everett High has continued to do that, and they've really worked the kinks out about how to get so many parents in and out of that gym. They've tried a couple different models, and they seem to have it down at this point. So it was just a great experience, and I think parents really do appreciate it. So with that, Dr. Cohn, what's your report tonight?
Well, we've got a couple of things for you this evening very quickly. I think first is I'd like to show you a picture of our Siegel Company, our Everett High School NGROTC Color Guard, presenting for the opening ceremony on October 15th of the Seattle Sounders game. We're very,
cool.
proud of what they've done. I have to tell you, I saw a number of color guards on my recent trip to Washington, D.C., and I would put Siegel Company up against all of those, except for the Sentinels at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. I have to say that was a unique experience. I'm going to try to give you a little bit of maybe a little slight travel log at our next regular board meeting, a few shots from that experience. There were over 47,000, I understand, in attendance. The game was televised nationally, so that's a lot of exposure for our Siegel Company. We're very, very proud of them. Cascade students got very much involved in career exploration at a hands-on learning opportunity during what's called Manufacturing Week. This is sponsored by Everett Community College Advanced Manufacturing and Training and Education Center, AMTech, and the Boeing Company. On October 5th, our Engineer Your World students toured AMTech and learned about many technical skills that are taught there, including welding, carbon fiber construction assembly, computerized machining. On the 6th, students from Cascade's manufacturing program went on a tour of Boeing. Well, let me say this a little different way. A couple of our staff members accompanied Cascade's manufacturing students on a tour of Boeing's Everett facility. What you see in that picture is students practicing riveting. They got to rivet a mock fuselage and splice practice, and practice splicing strands of electrical cable. So they came away from the tour, I'm told, very impressed and interested in learning a lot more. And it's one of the reasons that we are working so hard on strengthening and expanding our industry partnerships and developing these signature program clusters for our high schools. I think you're familiar with the family conversations that we've been operating over the past year and a half or so. We've held, I think, a couple of these for African American families. I think one for Hispanic families, one for Native American families, one for Russian Ukrainian families. And we were finally able to get together with leaders in the Marshallese community to hold a family conversation with Marshallese families. This was on October 14th. It brought together 150 students, families, and community members, which is very large gathering compared to the ones that we've done in the past. The Community Association president spoke about the importance of supporting children through high school graduation and to opening opportunities for them in the future. There were, of course, many opportunities for conversation. Program finished with participants asking questions of district staff, and also included a display of Marshallese crafts and food. And I think we had some pizza as well. So we're very appreciative of the support of the Marshallese community leaders. Remember, we started these family conversations with the federal subgroups in our district who have the lowest graduation rates, on-time graduation rates. Our objective, of course, with these is to build webs of support and relationships among community members with the district to support kids getting to commencement, whether it's on time or not on time, just getting to commencement. So I want to thank Cynthia Jones and her team in particular for getting this pulled together. On the 14th, we also had an opportunity for district staff members to gather, and they were at the farm at Swans Trail. I don't believe this is the first year we've done this. Is it the third year? Yeah, third year we've done this. It's just an opportunity sponsored by our Everett Education Association for families in the district to come together, have a good time, and sort of celebrate the impending fall and all of the holidays that are associated with it, and to have a great time outside with kids. And I think this time it didn't rain, so there was no mud, right? And I was in Washington, D.C. I couldn't do this one, but I hear perfect weather contributed to a great time for kids. Parent-teacher conferences are underway this week at elementary and middle schools, and this happens to be a photo from a parent-teacher conference that occurred this afternoon at Madison Elementary School. We try to bring you up-to-date news in the superintendent's reports, and I think people are pretty well familiar with with what parent-teacher conferences are all about, so I won't dwell on that. Pam mentioned board breakfast conversations, an opportunity to learn with folks and engage with parents and in particular at schools. And I believe this is a picture of that event at Woodside, and I think we see the staff or the parents with Pam, and I think Dr. Cobbs is in the distance in this particular photo, and maybe doing a little bit of presenting. So thank you for elaborating on that, Pam. I won't dwell. We talked a little bit about high school and beyond, and I'm told that that the rough count this year was 4,500 among the three, which I think is probably the biggest turnout that we've experienced. I don't have an exact count, and when we get an exact count, we'll share that with you. As you know, we try to attract families from the feeder patterns of the comprehensive high schools. This year, over 400 students and parents started out the evening at Heatherwood in that South Region group for pizza dinner and a keynote speaker. Then they walked over to the to the high school, and we had $250 scholarships from Rotary and individuals from Wells Fargo were at all three helping co-sponsor. I'm told that 100 students at all three of our high schools completed the FAFSA, that financial aid application form. And really what we want folks to do at these is understand what the options are for youngsters in high school and beyond, at college, in jobs, in trade schools. And we hope that families will come to a high school and beyond night multiple times, and that we essentially through this process change the minds of those folks who don't think their kids can go to college. We want them to understand through this experience that kids can. It's a matter of helping them get there. And so we'll keep doing these. They're I think you've all seen how popular they are. Quick construction update. Here's a photograph of a safety security pilot progress at one of the two schools, Hawthorne and Silver Firs, where we're developing these updates. You may recall that our initial approach to this ended up being too expensive, so we went back to the drawing board after we received only one bid, and it was way too much money. So this is at Silver Firs, where a gate's installed at the front entrance connected to fencing that'll be in place, and a video intercom and electronic remote access system will be put in place, and we'll see how that works at these two before expanding it to other schools. Finally, Forest View PTA provided a grant for accessible playground equipment installation, and they donated $5,578 to complete this second phase of the installation of accessible playground equipment for kindergarten and life skills classes. The board, you all, approved a donation from the PTA in May for $12,000, almost $12,000, and another $8,500 from the Snohomish County Council in August to support this project. So this is one that has been building over time, and multiple entities in the community have elected to contribute, and this is an example of lots of folks working together for kids. So thank you all very much, and that's the end of the superintendent's report for this evening.
Thank you very much. A lot of really great news happening. Okay, with that, we will move to section 10.0, Strategic Progress Monitoring, and tonight we get an update on summer school from Mr. Fleckenstein.
Well, good evening. Starting out the presentation today, somebody once told me to go big or go home, and that person's really important to me. She happens to be to my right here, Dr. Stewart. And so the theme that you're going to see tonight is to go big. The challenge for us was to make sure that we continuously work on improving the supports that we provide for students to facilitate on-time graduation or 5-year graduation. And tonight you're going to see the advancement of the summer program that a lot of great people have worked on this year to provide more access and opportunity to kids. So behind me are Drs. Willard and Jones. They'll be joining me up here at the podium tonight. And to give you an overview of this year's summer learning programs and provide the board with highlights of the learning that took place across our district at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. In addition to Dr. Jones and Willard, I'd also like to take a moment to recognize several people who made summer school happen this year. This is not an exhaustive list, but just a few people I would like to recognize for their time and energy. Daniel Natividad was the site administrator for our elementary programs. Karen Koster was our administrator at the middle level programs. And then in the audience tonight is Mr. Jack Roy, who oversaw the high school site administration for the summer programs. Thank you, Jack, for that. In addition, I'd also like to recognize in the audience Kathy Stillwell. You guys know Kathy? Kathy was instrumental in helping us get a middle school math, a district-wide summer school program going, so I thank you for that, Kathy. I'd also like to recognize, although I've not seen them enter yet, we had 2 student interns who filmed the videos that you'll see in the presentation tonight as part of a district internship over the summer, and that is Zoe Blackburn and Ashley Stivick. So you get to see the fruits of their labor, of their internship in this presentation. So the work of our summer programs is aligned to 4 teaching and learning key performance outcomes. And as you can see, our core value of equity is the primary driver and purpose for the continuous improvement and development of our summer programs. Within our summer learning programs, 3 themes encompassed our students' academic needs and pushed our team's planning and systems refinements this year. These themes were creating options for enriching, extending, and accelerating learning, supporting on-time and summer graduation by credit recovery and courses to engage students year-round, and to provide learning opportunities for students to explore and be innovative based on their career interests. Let's begin our summer overview with Dr. Cynthia Jones, who will present our elementary summer programs.
Well, thank you, and good evening, everyone. It's very gratifying to be here to share about our elementary summer school programs. This year, as we have in the last couple of years, we hosted a district-wide summer program and invited students from all 17 of our elementary schools and Port Gardner. Over 1,000 students attended at 6 different sites. This is the first year we were able to offer free breakfast and lunch for all of our students, even those in the South End. And that made a big difference for a number of our students. In addition to our district program, Cedarwood and Jefferson hosted site programs. Cedarwood invited first and second graders who were below standard in reading and included a parent engagement component. And Jefferson invited entering kindergarten students modeled on our Everett Ready program. Larry mentioned that there are several different goals for our summer school programs. At elementary, it's really all about accelerating learning and reducing achievement gaps, and you can see that in this slide. Almost half of our students were English learners, over a quarter are eligible for special education support, and 4% were McKinney-Vento students. Looking at the pie graph of the ethnicities, you can see that almost 1/3 of our summer school students were Hispanic, compared to 19% representation of Hispanic students in the overall district population. The same is true of our American Indian, Black, and Pacific Islander populations, significantly more representation in our summer school population than in the overall district population. Thinking about the learners we were inviting, we knew that we needed to provide a program that was very engaging, very active, that would make strong connections for students in their instruction, and that would allow opportunity for them to rehearse and practice. So we were very excited when we were able to inaugurate the Reach for Reading curriculum, and we selected a unit from Reach for Reading that correlated with a science unit. And this table shows you the topics then that each grade level focused on. We created an integrated reading, writing, and science unit and used guided language acquisition design, or GLAD strategies. So students had 2 hours of that integrated unit, and then the 3rd hour was a math focus on growth mindset and key concepts for the upcoming grade level. So as Larry said, we have a brief video here of our elementary summer school program where you'll see some of those design elements. So welcome to Silver Lake. So we think we had a very powerful curriculum, but also that our students and our staff had fun. In addition to our program for entering 1st through 5th graders, we offered Everett Ready to entering kindergarten students at 6 different sites. We provided 8 days. We invited students who were our English learners and students who had not had preschool experience. And this was an opportunity for them to become familiar with their school, their classroom, and to learn classroom expectations and procedures so that on the first day of kindergarten, they were ready to rock and roll. We are learning that the most effective way to get parents together for the parent engagement component is to invite them to come about 20 minutes before student dismissal and then gather them up for a brief mini lesson with the parents. And we are tremendously grateful to the Everett Public Schools Foundation for their funding, which makes Everett Ready possible. Moving on to middle school, this was the second year that we were able to offer a summer school program for our middle school English learners. We invited students from across the district who were transitioning into 6th grade and 7th and 8th graders at the emerging level of English proficiency. Just as we did with the elementary with the thematic unit, we created a thematic unit for our middle school students as well. But this one was focused on reading, writing, and social studies, using a biography of Sacagawea, and then incorporating information about Native American tribes of Washington State and the Lewis and Clark expedition. So now these students have some background information that prepares them for Washington State history. Our successes were certainly the alignment of those instructional programs and the coordination of the program across the district as a whole, which we couldn't have done without the support of all of the district departments and systems, a few of which are mentioned here. And I need to say a big thank you to the many, many people across the district who really helped us to implement this program smoothly. As Larry mentioned, Daniel Natividad provided site leadership for the elementary sites. The assistant principals took on leadership in their buildings, recruiting staff, inviting students, and if they were a hosting building, organizing the logistics for that. Daniel provided common processes, procedures, templates that all of the buildings used so that we had a coherent program across all of the schools. And in fact, that model was so successful that that's what we would like to replicate at middle school this coming year as well. Additional action steps for this coming summer. We know we need to increase the professional development for new staff and substitutes. We provide 2 days of professional development for our summer school staff, and that's sufficient probably for our current staff, but we're also rounding out our summer school hiring with staff who are coming in new to Everett Public Schools and substitutes. And we're realizing that we rely so heavily now on online programs and internet access and various online programs, and we need to provide additional training for those people coming into the district. And then to organize, plan, implement a program of the scope that we are talking about. The work really begins in January, and by spring break, it's a full-time job. So we know we need to hire additional support staff and get them in as early as possible. So I'm going to turn this back over to Larry to continue with the middle school program.
Thanks, Cynthia. Well, this was our first year offering a middle school math summer program, serving all 5 of our middle schools. Support and collaboration between our CASP, categorical, and teaching and learning departments made this inaugural year program possible for our students. 281 kids took a math course this summer, with 14 teachers providing instruction at 2 sites. That would be at Evergreen and Heatherwood. Our middle math program provided both support and advancement opportunities for our middle school students, helping them to fill in gaps in their learning or to advance them into our advanced math pathways by taking a summer bridge course. As you can see in the diagram on the screen, it shows that advancement transition that students could take through the summer program to get ahead into the more advanced math options for their future. This is a breakdown of the student participants in our summer math courses by each site. North and Evergreen students attended summer class at the Evergreen site, while Eisenhower, Heatherwood, and Gateway students attended the Heatherwood site. In total, 281 students participated in our summer math program. Only 30 students who were signed up by their parents in June did not actually attend. And we worked to fill those open spots for other kids who were waiting. The following quote is was provided to us on an exit survey from the parents that encapsulates the benefit for students needing summer math support or an opportunity for math advancement. It just so happens that this one Evergreen parent had both student experiences in her household this summer. It is wonderful to hear that both students had a positive experience and built their confidence up in math by participating in our summer program. We also supported the development of our special needs students this summer at Monroe Elementary School in our extended school year program, serving over 300 IEP goals to meet the needs of 50 of our students. The ESY program continues to have the support of the Special Education PTSA, who was gracious enough again this year to show their appreciation for the staff and by hosting their annual luncheon. And now let's transition our view to the summer high school programs. Our secondary summer school program was located at Cascade High School for a second year. Again, 2 sessions were offered for our high school students. A 6-week program, which is traditionally for advancement opportunities for summer learning, and a 3-week program that is focused on credit recovery. New this year was the addition of 2 courses that were provided by our Wannick Skills Center partnership that we have, which I will be highlighting later in the presentation. Displayed is the 3-year comparison of our summer program overview. This year we took on the philosophy to go big and to reach more students than we ever have before. This impacted the course completion rate from 89% completion rate last year to 82% this year. However, we experienced an increase of 222 more courses taken this year compared to last year, and an increase of 61 more credits earned this year than last year. So this year, students passed 826 total courses. That's the highest total ever for a comprehensive high school program. So you might be wondering, what does it look like to go to Cascade High School for summer school? Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So as you can see in that last few frames, just the number of students who benefited from the summer lunch program to attend summer school. It was a huge support that we were able to offer and have been offering for several years at Cascade High School. What you saw was the Research by Design course, which was a snow owl course that was offered on site at Cascade High School, primarily. Well, let's get into some of the data that is reflective of our work this year in the high school summer program. Here you can see which students by grade level attended summer school. These are unduplicated students by percentage. These percentages include the Snow While and Wannick Skills Center courses for advancement and enrichment, in addition to all of the courses that were available this summer. Participation is up from last year, 497 students, and as I shared, is up to 558 students this year. As you can see, 37% of summer school attendees were high school seniors by credit, with an increase from 31% from last year, while juniors decreased by 16%. Sophomores held steady in their participation at 26% of the whole, and freshmen were reduced from last year by 12%. Here you can see which students by ethnicity attended summer school. These are also unduplicated students by percentage. Nearly half of summer school attendees were white, 23% were Hispanic Latino, 16% Asian, and 7% African American. By contrast, our ethnic distribution as a district is 56% white, 19% Hispanic Latino, 13% Asian, and 4% African American. Holistically, we serve slightly more non-white students than the previous year. Compared to last year, we have seen a 3% increase in our Latino students taking summer school classes and a 2% decrease in our white student population. Of note, 47.4% of high school summer school students were on free and reduced lunch or are considered low income, while our district's free and reduced lunch rate is around 38%. So we're serving a lot of students who need our support. When we look at the grade distribution in all 1,010 courses that were attempted, we can see that only 4% of grades issued were Fs, incompletes, or for no credit. At the time this data was pulled in early October, we saw an increase by 10% from the previous year of the number of unsatisfactory marks, or Us, as it's described in the pie chart. This data point will still vary throughout the first semester. Success coordinators at each high school are following up with students who have a U via online recovery programs like Fuel Ed to help them complete their courses. The chart also shows that 39% of the courses taken as designated by the S or P grades, satisfactory or passed, were courses for credit recovery. Looking deeper at our recovery courses this year, the most frequently taken courses in our high school summer program for credit recovery, 30% of the 551 courses were history, with English accounting for 20% of the recovered courses taken, which is similar to last year. Math courses, grades 9 through 12 combined, accounted for 9% of the courses that were taken for credit recovery. The top 5 most attended recovery classes were, in order, World History, U.S. History, Geometry, Coordinated Science, and English 1. When we drill down into the 18% of course grades, which was 99 more than last year, that did not earn credit, we can see that of the 184 F incompletes, no credits, or unsatisfactory grades issued, distribution to grade 12, 11, and 9 were proportionate to their percent of the population who attended. Where we see the number of Fs, incompletes, no credit, and U grades elevated is the sophomore class, which comprised 26% of the summer school population, yet earned 33% of failing grades, or no credit. Meaning a higher failure rate among sophomores who attended summer school for at least one day. When we look even deeper at the students who did not earn credit for a course they attended this summer, we can see that in comparison to the percentage of each subgroup to the district whole on the previous slide, that our Hispanic Latino students, Pacific Islander, and Black students failed at a percentage greater than their percentage relative to the total population. Aside from all the data that you just saw, which I know is pretty dense, we also, as summer school, is an opportunity for students to explore and innovate. Partnering again this year with Snow Owl Tech and Wannock Skill Centers, our students and students from neighboring school districts could take at no cost one of 4 courses offered on-site at Cascade High School. Students could also take Wannock or Snow Owl courses off-site at other school sites outside of the district at no cost as well. For more personalized summer school options, online high school courses such as PE, government, and U.S. history were offered for students looking to get ahead or to take a class early to advance their coursework during the regular year. So with our new partnership with the Wannock Skill Center program and DigiPen, let's take a quick look at what our students were learning in the new art and animation and video game design courses over the summer. Well, the dramatic video effects there make coding seem very exciting. But now I'd like to turn over the rest of the presentation to Dr. Jeannie Willard.
So some of our action steps from the summer include, of course, leveraging technology. So some of that in the exciting video that was on before this. We've increased personalization. One of my favorite parts of summer is that we get to personalize how we ensure each student graduates, because seniors at that point do need that personal touch. We've been refining our processes for registering our students, especially credit deficient students, starting earlier in the year. Also, we have to revise that as students actually pass classes and finish things throughout, even up through the very end of June, right before summer school starts. All of this work complements our 24 credit graduation requirements. Our ninth graders right now are in the class of 2021, and they will be part of our summer school programming as well, and we're ready for them. And then we've been systematizing our direct services to all of our potential August grads, and a lot of successes in that area. One of the things that we've been working on over many, many years is around our coordinated transitions. And what you see is that we're really clear about what we know about our seniors who have not graduated and passing them on to the summer school crew. And even though Larry shared with you information about the staff that we hire for the summer, there are so many people who are part of our summer school that are not listed there. There are administrators. There are success coordinators who are on their summer break. There are people who are involved, teachers and others who are really vested in those students graduating. So part of that is really that we communicate through OneNote. This is just an image of one student who graduated, and we track very closely the number of credits that they have, how we communicate with each student. We have every email, every phone number, whether we can text someone. We list all of the credits and how they're doing on meeting each of those requirements. Things change daily, weekly, and so forth. And then if you were to see the bottom of the screen, what you would see is that there's a long list of descriptions of each interaction we have with students, and especially students who aren't attending some of our programming that we know need to graduate. We are doing regular home visits. We're making regular phone calls. These are daily, sometimes multiple times per day. And so these are very intricate ways of actually making sure everyone knows what's going on. And if someone's not physically at summer school, they still can know what's going on. The best part of summer is really summer graduation. So we do that student by student work. We have wraparound services for students. I'm looking at 2 students on that screen that I personally got to help to graduation, one of which needed a lot of tutoring, was very afraid of math, and we were able to get those services. And I'm telling you, a couple weeks before, she did not think she was going to graduate. She was pretty much done at that point. But we actually pulled in a recent graduate to help her, and then we also got a certificated teacher to help her as well. She's never received so many services in her life, and she graduated on time this summer. Another student really was having difficulty putting together their final plan, just the last items. For some reason, her plan just got really confusing because there were a lot of transitions she had made. We sat down together, we worked through the plan, and a week before it, where it looked like there were some gaps, she actually had those pieces. And I have to commend her because she really came forward and said, I'm not sure what this looks like. And we just really worked through that. So those wraparound services really work for each student. Then Gear Up, this was our last year for the class of 2017. We were able to use their services to help support all of our students, but they were especially focused, because that's what Gear Up is for Everett High School and Cascade High School. And then when summer school ended, we were still working with students who did not complete their graduation requirements and helping them to graduation. If you were with us at that ceremony, but all the way through to the end of the summer, we had a few others. We had 25 August graduates. So with that, we have some next steps. We're going to expand the number of high school courses offered during the summer as we roll out our one-to-one devices. It's really going to open up some access. We're going to plan for additional administrative support for our middle school locations that would greatly enhance the coordination we have between our different programs there. Monitoring our recovery courses to ensure every student makes sure that they pass those pieces. We have a lot of kids in there, so we need a lot more hands involved. And then we're going to work on increasing our 9th and 10th grade enrollment in our summer school courses, because right now you're going to see our 24 credit graduation requirement is rolling up with our current 9th graders. So we need them involved even earlier than we did before. So we'll be working on that this year too. And then we're also going to be improving the amount of enrichment courses that we offer. You heard about the Wannock and Snow Isle courses, and we're gonna have some options for more courses that are free to students that really move students along in terms of graduation, but also for college preparation as well. So with that, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the three of you, not only for a really great presentation, but for all the work you've done all summer long. It's great to see that it doesn't end in June, that it continues on, and it's needed. We all know the benefits of year-round education for some of our students, probably all of our students, actually. So with that, I'd like to, and I want to thanks for the video too, the videos, which could have brought the whole experience into the boardroom. We appreciate that.
Teaching is summer school.
Yeah. With that, I'd like to open it up to questions to the student representatives and directors. Are there any questions regarding our summer school program? Director Lassane, please.
Yes, wonderful and well done. It was great work. Thank you so very much. I had some questions here, but I, waited until the end, in the next steps, and you answered some of those questions for me. So that was very good. One question I do have, when we start looking at the deficiencies of, completion or the Fs and the Cs that we received, a large group of sophomores, in the future, I guess this is asking us, are we going to do additional support for sophomores or juniors next year? Because our sophomores this year will be our juniors next year. Because some of them may not be prepared with the right number of credits necessary for graduation? Or is sophomore an age or a grade where that additional support might be very well needed for those students? That's a question.
I think what we left the summer thinking about were systems of support, because we don't know that sophomores in particular need more than our freshmen or our juniors or even our seniors, which need a lot of help too because of the different demands at the very end of graduating with us. But we talked about systems of support. So we've done a really good job of having something like the OneNote for seniors, where you could be anywhere. You could be on vacation and you know what's going on with certain students. And we've developed a lot of our reporting, where every other day there are reports being sent to key individuals to know the status in the grade book around kids. We're going to do some things to build that out so that we can really focus on students, so as they're fading in their grades, that we can step in. Because it's hard to tell until those moments arise what we should do in advance, because we're going to see some changes, just the natural flow of the courses they take and what they'll be more or less successful at. So we're going to work on doing a better job of reporting and sharing that information, and then putting some more automated steps for stepping in when those things aren't happening. We do that already, but we can do a lot more stuff that we might do with a smaller group and expand it across the group.
If I could interject, one of the things we gave you an unfiltered view with the 1,010 attempted courses that we had. We did not take out the courses in the data that you saw, hence the increase in the U's, percentage of unsatisfactory marks for credit recovery. We did not remove the ones the students did not complete. If they sat down for even one day and attempted that class for recovery, we counted them in the numbers that you saw. What we did is we signed them up for what we knew they needed to get on track to be on time for graduation. In many cases, there were students who were signed up for 3 courses. They would finish one, and then they disappeared, and we couldn't get them back into the seat. So instead of not giving you an accurate picture of what that looks like, we just owned it and shared it with you tonight. That was our challenge. And what Jeannie's describing in terms of monitoring is the only way that we overcome that. We can sign them up one course at a time, but what we really know that kid needs going into summer is they needed 3. And we have to find a better way to help support them to get all 3 done, to get on track again, not just 1.
Well, with summer school just being 6 weeks, is there something that we should be doing for our kids earlier to let them know that, the short, what would happen during summer school if they don't complete these courses, and give them that kind of heads up and support initially to let them know how to plan for their summer?
Yeah, that counseling takes place when they're signed up. They meet with the success coordinator and actually get signed up for the summer courses, and that's where that conversation takes place with those students going into the summer. So they're fully aware when they go to summer school what their status is and what they're deficient on or what they need to make up. But once again, we have to support students to get all of them done, not just one. And that's the monitoring piece that we need to work on and strengthen for next year.
My next question is about the enrichment. I saw where DigiPen and the STEM partnership courses that we had there. That's fantastic. I'm very happy about that. Were those, I know with Snow Owl courses, the research by design was free. Was the other course also free for students that wish to take those classes?
There were 4 classes and they were all free.
Oh,
Yeah. 2 through Snow Island and 2 through DigiPen. And we're going to work on additional ones as well. Monarch's going to allow us more. So
very well.
we'll be able to plan for that.
Thank you. I'll let some of the other directors ask more questions. Thank you.
I just have a couple of questions, especially for the kids who are taking credit recovery versus the kids who are taking advanced classes. I think it might be nice to really see what that might look like, because 558 kids, is that 558 who needed credit recovery, or is that 200 of those are kids who are advancing? Because my question really comes into the fact that as we are trying to always do a better job of our equity, for the kids who are taking advanced, what do their demographics look like? Are we meeting the needs? Are Hispanic kids advancing so that they feel comfortable taking? Are kids who are African American, are they taking in those advanced classes, trying to take that advantage of that summer, and just not, maybe it doesn't need to be in this report next year, but just as a way that we're, just looking at it, making sure we're always doing this through an equity lens. I mean, I know we try our best, but just that total students, who is doing advanced and who is doing their credit recovery, and just sort of what do they look like, would sort of be helpful, I think. But thank you, this is wonderful.
I actually had a question along those lines. Do we have any longitudinal data of what we do a great job breaking down the demographics, but what would a academic profile look like for a student who is qualifying for summer school? What do they look like when they complete their summer school versus a student who may qualify but doesn't? And then how do they, perform through our system all the way through graduation? So kind of along the same line that Director Mitchell was asking. It is great. I mean, our summer school program is bigger than a lot of districts in the state. I mean, it's simply amazing. And so the free breakfast and lunch and the math middle school, that's been a discussion we've been having as far as how do we strengthen our math area. That was fantastic. The question I had on slide 27 regarding credit recovery, have those changed much over the years in terms of the courses for credit recovery? And the reason why I asked that question is if we're seeing world history and U.S. history again and again and again, at one point does it become a curriculum issue? So.
Well, it's funny, as I was putting this together, I remember you having that same, or a director last year had that question about why are they failing so many history classes? And I don't have an answer as to why they are. I just know that 2 years in a row since I've been given this presentation, it's the highest failed courses that are then taken for recovery in the summer. So I would have to delve much deeper into the why for that. But it is at least a 2-year pattern now that we see as the most frequently taken courses or retaken courses in summer school.
And not just during summer school, but certainly for the last 7 years, these are consistently the highest failed courses that we have, and consistently in the summer as well. because we have definitely measured this. However, the number of failures overall, even in some of these areas, has become smaller. So even though it's a pie chart and shows it distributed this way, what's hidden is our overall failures keep going down. So even though it's a similar looking pie,
Yes.
overall it's a smaller number or smaller percentage of students because we have more kids. It's a smaller percentage of our kids failing. And that's been a concerted effort of on-time graduation.
Student representatives, do you have any questions? I had a quick question, Dr. Jones, just about the free breakfast funding. You mentioned that this was our first year. How were we able to accomplish that?
We were able to accomplish that by working with our food and nutrition. The schools that have 50% or more free or reduced lunch automatically get free meals through the federal government. The other schools, this year, our food and nutrition department were able to consider our summer school as an extended school year, and then they were able to get reimbursement for the students who qualified for free or reduced lunch. And then we had to pay for the balance of the students, but the fact that they were able to do that brought the cost down to a point where we could afford to pay for
That's
the remaining
excellent.
students. Yeah,
That's
it made
great.
a big difference.
Thank you very much. And I think the success of our summer school, I think Dr. Willard gave it away a little bit when she said, even when you're on vacation, you can see where every student is. I think those are maybe some of the tricks of why our kids are being successful. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it. I think if directors are okay with it, we're going to move the break to after our next presentation, our summer reading program, if Dr. Stewart is flexible and willing to jump in.
I'm happy to do that, and I think I have
Thank
some
you.
students and parents in the audience who are saying thank you also.
Yes,
So
we were
thank
hoping.
you for doing that. So good evening, and as I've shared in the past, I like to capture the presentation with a quote or some pictures, but tonight there are so many quotes and pictures out there about reading that I couldn't just do it with one, so I'm going to read you a few from some famous leaders and authors. So for example, C.S. Lewis says, "We read to know we are not alone." Dr. Seuss says, "The more you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go." Maya Angelou said, "Any book that helps a child to form a habit of reading, to make reading one of his or her deep and continuing needs, is good for him or her." And another author says, "The greatest gift is a passion for reading." And then finally, Harry Truman says, "Not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers." And then I do have to put Jacqueline Kennedy, because she was one of my favorites, said, "There are many little ways to enlarge your child's world. Love of books is the best of all." So I think all of these are really important quotes, but I have to say it's a quote from a student from Everett High School, Connor Bugney, who I think his quote when he was talking to his librarian really captures this presentation. And he said, "I love summer reading because it is a great way to explore what exists beyond the boundaries of possibility and actuality." So that's the quote that I want you to be thinking about tonight during this presentation. In addition to those quotes, I want you to remember not just one number, two numbers, but three numbers tonight. So the first number you're going to remember is 4,367. And Director Wenta, I know you missed this last summer, so I'm going to make sure you hear it for this year. Last year, 6,848. And the final number you have to remember tonight is 8,031. So let's see if you can remember those numbers. So you heard earlier in Dr. Cohn's presentation that it's conference week. So this is an update, like parents are hearing a progress report update. This is similar. So the first four bullets, I'm just going to really cover the past. And then the last five bullets is what's new, the present. So I'm going to review, why did we even get this started in 2015? What's the research around it? Explain again the components of the program. And again, share the strong connection to college and career readiness. And then the updates are going to communicate the support we've gotten for this program, some of our new partners, and then show our results. And then most of all, the most important, and I'm going to really watch my time because I don't want you to miss this, updates this year. You're going to hear from some of our students and their parents. And then we're a continuous improvement district. We're always looking at how to get better. So I'm going to present the next steps to you. So talking about the purpose, why did we launch this in the summer 2015? Really to eliminate the summer slide, but more than that, to match the quote I just read to you, is really give our students a lifetime gift, the ability to read. And then we started in the fall of 2005 having all of our students entering middle school, because a lot of students, that seems to be the age they begin to really struggle with bullying and harassment, intimidation issues. So we have every one of our students who enter 6th grade read the book Wonder, which really focuses on that. And then we have our middle school staff members at the beginning of the year do activities around that book. But most of all, just creating this community-wide culture of reading. So these were the 4 reasons we launched this program 3 summers ago. And then just to visit some of the key research that I've shown you before, just to know that it's estimated that the summer slide accounts for as much as 85% of the reading achievement gap between lower income students and middle and upper income, their middle and upper income peers. And then I think the second one I've talked to you about before, but I want to point out the last one. Thinking about this time of the year, 3rd graders who can't read on grade level are 4 times less likely to graduate by age 18 than a proficient reader. And I think it goes with what we just heard in the last presentation, the importance of why we have our summer school programs, to keep these students engaged. So again, here's a couple more pieces of research that align with the impact on students and their families living in poverty. So again, if you remember about 3 years ago, we were implementing the Common Core, and just the emphasis on reading in the Common Core, especially related to comprehension and vocabulary, those are the central focus of the Common Core state standards. And as you've seen in some of the presentations given, especially by Georgia Lindquist, how students are asked questions that push them back to provide evidence from the text. And then finally, just that destination to get the students college, career, and life ready without remediation. And reading is such an important part of whether it's college, career, and life ready. And then the emphasis with reading or the Common Core standards on 21st century skills, which again are also integrated to our careers and life readiness. So let me talk about the components of the program this year. So each year, like I said, continuous improvement. So for example, in 2 weeks, some of us are meeting with our librarians, and they give us the most input on how to make the program better. So we went to them, and they always tell us some key things we need to change or what's working and not change. We also, last year, we can improve the communication to our parents. In the past, we'd put the brochures in the students' backpacks or in the students' binders, and we hoped they got home. So, you know, when schools start and some of the kids would drag out their backpacks again, the parents would see, oh, there's a summer reading brochure. So this year we mailed the brochures home to the parents with their progress reports. So we did that district-wide. And then also always asking the librarians, what books are kids reading, and try to always increase the access to books. And then Joanne Budewick from LMS has worked so closely with us to provide access to Accelerated Reader, and she takes the phone calls and the emails from parents throughout the summer if they're struggling and answers them immediately, and that's really, really important to our parents and our students. And then changing out not so much a lot of them, but the incentives, and always integrating choice. We heard that from students a couple years ago. Integrate choice into this. Something that was new this year is in the spring, we put out a contest. So we asked our elementary students if they wanted to participate in a contest, and in design the covers, we asked the middle school and high school. We got hundreds of students who participated. The hard part when you do this is someone has to be a judge, and then we need to eliminate a lot of them, but just tells you about the creativity of our students. So on each of the brochures you see here, you see that those winners' pieces of art were used. So here are the brochures. So this is required, the first one for students entering kindergarten, and what we have here is that their parent or a significant adult reads to these students, and then the minutes are recorded. And we have incentives. You see the incentives there, a carabiner, and then when they reach the higher levels, believe it or not, one that continues to be really popular, and I'm so glad we have a great partnership with the Daily Herald. Students love having their names in the paper, and their parents do too. I wish you could have been in our cabinet meeting when I showed the paper, both Dr. Scott and Mr. Fleckenstein had their cameras out and they were taking pictures of their students just after they got the paper. So that told me we need to continue that great partnership with the Herald. And then, of course, they love getting their names in for a drawing with the Kindle. And you can see that goes all the way across. When we get to high school, we have great partnership with the Y, and the students also have the opportunity to have their names put in for a drawing for a Y membership. So these rewards do matter, and students really care about those rewards. So you can see as you look at these different brochures, what's required. In the middle schools and high schools, we have requirements. But last year what we did is we asked our different English or ELA teachers to help provide some information about what books do they want their students to be required to do, but we also integrated choice again. So that's why you see to the right English 1, English 2, and they differ a little bit between our 3 high schools. They're similar in a lot of ways, the activities are similar, but there are some differences between the 3 different high schools. So again, this is based on feedback from our ELA teachers and librarians. So expanded support for the program. This year we developed a stronger partnership with the Aqua Sox. When the report cards went home and the brochure went in there, there was also a bookmark that the Aqua Sox designed and had some dates where if students brought their brochures with that bookmark that they would get a discount. Our PTAs helped us host a couple events this summer. We continue to expand our hours at our libraries, and what was really important is we integrated this into our summer school program. So you heard from Mr. Fleckenstein how we expanded our elementary, especially our elementary programs, and we made sure that we integrated it into it. And like I said earlier, just sending those brochures home to parents, more parents knew about the summer reading program. And then again, just keeping it on our website. But I just want you to point out again, look at these great partners we have. Everett Schools Foundation provides all the Kindles. The Y provides 3 memberships to our high school students, and then the Aqua Sox joined in this year too. But again, our initial partners were our public libraries, and they continue to be strong partners. Barnes & Noble always gives us lots of incentives to give to students too, and the University Bookstore posts all of our brochures throughout the summer. So I talked to you about the LMS support. Joanne worked last year really hard to get this on our progress reports, and it's the second year that it's listed whether students participated in summer reading, and I think it's just an awareness for parents when they're going through the progress reports to make sure that that's called out. So let's talk about the results. So you can see this slide lists all the schools, so you can see the elementary schools here, and if you take a look at the right, the bottom right, you can see the participation comparisons to the previous year. You can see there's been some significant changes compared to the following year. That's what we'd like to see in the right direction, in many cases double digits. Here you see our middle schools. And then you can see our high school participation. And that's a little bit more of a challenge, I have to say, really at the high school level. I'm not sure why, because we have some amazing high school librarians that are trying their very best to get high school kids reading. So I haven't been able to answer that question, but we're not going to give up. We're going to continue to work on participation, especially at our high schools. But I want you to really focus at the bottom there. Those numbers, I remember the first year when I came to you and we thought 4,367, we can do better. And we're right, we can do better, and we are doing better. So again, I hope that this will continue throughout the years, but the fact that it's now, it isn't anything new. It's integrated into our culture. It's just part of the business that we do, and I hope that we continue this in the future. So, you know, what's really great is after school starts, our principals and our staff members, they stop and they celebrate this. Like I said, all the activities around Wonder. I just have to shout out to Heatherwood Middle School and Gateway. They always plan an author in this fall right away to celebrate with them. So these pictures, you're going to see some of them from the authors. But I want you to capture, I mean, even look at this high school student when he got his Y membership. I mean, look how excited they are, or in the middle, those little incentives they got. They still matter to students. You see the younger ones at the top celebrating. I just wanted to capture some faces, and you see kids reading outside. It just is, it's great that we continue this. Here you see again celebrations at Heatherwood and then Gateway with the author. So talking about impact, so I wanted to make time tonight so that you can really hear from some of our students and their parents. So I'd like to invite Ethan Case. He's a student at Heatherwood Middle School. We're going to hear from middle school, and then we'll have our high school students, and then we'll end with 2 of our elementary students. So at this time, I'd like to invite Ethan and his parents to come to the podium and talk to us, tell us your thoughts about summer reading. And this hasn't been polished or practiced, so it's going to be news to me too, so I can't wait. So thank you for being here. And I'm not worried, Ethan, so you aren't either. That's a good thing. So just stand over here, right here, and the mic, you don't need to worry about worrying it. It'll pick up your voice. So.
Okay. Well, the first year of summer reading, I didn't really turn it in, to be honest. I didn't turn it in. Because I didn't really know what to read. They didn't give me any guidelines. But in 5th grade, my teacher, she kind of got me more engaged into reading, and because she read this book to me, and I loved it so much that I kind of started reading it, and that's when I started really reading more. And I found that in my reading, I more like opinions and things from adults more than choosing my own books, because it's easier for me to go off people's opinions. And as a 5th grader, when they assigned Wonder to me, I loved it. I mean, it was a really good book, and it kind of just gave me more power and things to finish summer reading and actually turn it in, which I did that year. And this past year, my librarian, she would talk us through the books that were in the recommended list, and I kind of knew what I was going to read before school had ended, and before school had ended, I had the first book that I was reading for summer.
Thank you, Ethan.
So I'm actually very grateful. I have 2 different children. One was a reader, and Ethan kind of came to it. And summer reading helped build that expectation. And the teachers really connected and kept encouraging. And that's made a huge difference. And it was fun to see him ready to buy the books before summer started. And that was a huge change. And I really credit this program for really inspiring him, which is why I think Dr. Stewart might have invited us. But I appreciate it.
Case, you want to say something? You want to make any comments?
I just appreciate it because I'm a 1st grade teacher at Jackson Elementary, so I've seen how it can impact our students as they come back from the summer. So yes, thank you, Dr. Stewart.
Okay, one last time, let's recognize you. Okay, now we're going to move to the high school. Alexis, you ready? Okay. Fonseo from Everett High School. And then tell them how the books are with you. I didn't give that away, Alexis.
So for this year, because I am a senior at Everett High, most people would think that I wouldn't really be doing much, but this summer I read 25 books for summer reading. Before school even ended, I had 11 books checked out from my library, and I made plenty of trips to the Everett Public Library during the summer. For me, reading has been a large part of my experience with learning. I have loved reading ever since 5th grade when I picked up the Percy Jackson series. So books for me, like Dr. Stewart said, is you read to know you are not alone. One of the books that I read this summer was Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. It was his memoir of growing up in South Africa after the end of apartheid. And it was just such a mind-blowing experience because his life growing up was so similar to mine, even though we grew up on completely different continents. And it's just such a great thing to see that you're not that different from everyone around the world. There's people out there just like you, and it's such an amazing and enlightening experience.
And finally, I'm going to ask Mr. Beckley to help me with this. Mr. Beckley, do you have a stand? We have 2 elementary students from Madison Elementary. We have Brianne Shakiros and her sister Naomi. So I'm not sure who's coming up first, and I'm going to ask their parents to come with them because I want to make sure that they're safe. They're safe, yes. All right, so let's come up here. Stand up there. Okay. How are you doing? Good. Are you? Let's get your mom and dad beside you to provide you some support. Okay. Are you ready? Okay, tell me your name, what grade you're in.
I'm in 2nd grade. My name is Brienne. And summer, and I like to read a lot. And sometimes when I read, I like to picture it in my head. My favorite type of books are chapter books. And reading really helps my brain grow.
How about we have Mom read it, okay? Naomi, I think, wants Mom to read it tonight. Okay. Yeah, that's okay.
So-
Mom's gonna read it.
Naomi did a whole brainstorming and wrote what she wanted to say and drew a picture. So I'll read it for her. So Naomi's also in 2nd grade at Madison Elementary. And she wrote, I like chapter books and summer reading made my brain grow. And I love reading because I like AR, Accelerated Reader, and Junie B. Jones books a lot. She was also going to add that she loves books about sharks. She was going to ad-lib that part, so. Just as parents, I think that having a summer reading program really encourages our kids to stay connected to their school community. That's maybe a little bit easy for my kids because I work at their school, but in general, our school community really comes together around the summer reading program, and we had a lot of fun visiting the library and connecting with friends that we probably wouldn't see over the summer. And again, it just keeps them learning and growing and thinking all throughout the time that they're not in school. So thank you very much.
Thank you both, okay? Thank you. All right. So now I just want to end by talking about next steps. So again, as I mentioned earlier, it's important to gather input from our partners and then continue to ensure that students have access to AR throughout the summer. We're going to send home the brochures again to parents, and then just making sure we communicate the summer reading program on our new reader board out here on Broadway. So you heard, I went through the purpose again, the research around it, all the components, how we're changing some of the components, introduced some of our new community partners. You saw the progress we're making, the results, but most of all, you got to hear from some of our students and their parents. So I am ready for any questions, and the students, if I can't answer them, I'm sure you can, so.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the parents and students who came tonight. That was really special to hear from everyone. We really appreciate it. With that, I will open it up to questions. Do directors or student representatives have questions regarding summer reading?
I just have a couple of statements. You know, I've always been a big supporter of this. And Alexi, I appreciate what you said. And young ladies, I really appreciate what you said. And Mr. Case, I appreciate what you said. There is a wonderful book out there right now, When Breath Becomes Air. And it's about a doctor who writes his own story about when he dies of lung cancer. Beautiful. And so when you can read something like that, it's beautiful. And Alexi, I think that's what it is, where you can read somebody that's like yourself or something that you can imagine. So I appreciate what you said. I do see an opportunity, though. Not all English classes in the high school are represented on that list. And so AP Seminar did not have a required reading. And when you have high school students, they are not all like Alexi. And if it's not required, they don't always do it. And so I just see an opportunity for a child who participated every year because her mother made her, and then it's not required. It's really hard to make her. But just that there is an opportunity there, especially for those AP classes, I think, to make sure that they have something for summer.
So Dr. Lancaster, you can take notes for me?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to go back to those English teachers.
It was required at Everett High.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was required at one school and not another.
Okay,
So I
thank
think
you for that input.
Opportunity for required reading, I highly support.
We like opportunities.
Yeah, so I have a question about the data. So the levels 1 through 4, are those reported before the summer or after the summer reading, after they went through the summer reading?
After they've completed it. So we just gathered the data here about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So we give time for the schools to get the data to us. And then schools are asking us sometimes to change when they find out they've missed a student or two. So they are concerned about their data. It matters.
I had a question also about high school, the participation comparison over the years in the high school area. And the participation has grown. We see that from 2015 up to 2017, it has grown. There's a little dip in there, with one going backwards. But my concern also is what more can we do to, Dr. Mitchell had a good suggestion, but what more can we do for our high schools to keep the numbers up so that they can benefit from the opportunities of reading during the summer?
That's where I'm hoping our librarians can provide us some input in the next couple of weeks, see if they're noticing some trends and some patterns and what's the why behind their data and who's reading and who isn't. So we're going to have to dig into this and get more input.
Mm-hmm. Challenges, kids at that age like to have challenges between schools or between classes, and opportunities in AP courses are also an opportunity too. So that's great. I'm glad you're looking into those things.
4,367, 6,848, and 8,031.
8,000, yeah.
Did well.
Oh, I was right in. I was
so well.
worried, Joyce. I might get in trouble or something.
Quiz is coming.
Quick question for you, though, on slide 20, where it talks about the different levels of participation. How's that compared to previous years? And level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. What are we seeing?
I think what we're seeing is we like that there's participation in level 1, but we're seeing that there's more participation in 3 and 4, which we like. So, for example, if you look at the newspaper this year, we have 2 full pages of students' names. So what's exciting is, it's great to have more participation, but what are they reading? And we're seeing that students are reading multiple books compared that we had seen in the past. So that was exciting to us as far as a trend.
Thank you.
Director Andrews, did you have a question first?
I have a question and a comment. So the high school numbers percentage participation is a bit low, but I'm really encouraged by the middle school participation, just recognizing that if you can plant the seed at that stage, it's probably going to take them into high school. And also, just recognizing the ability for kids now to do anything but read with all the media, social media and electronic devices. I think these numbers are fabulous. So, and reading is really the basis of, I think, all academic success. If you can't read, it's pretty difficult. So this is really encouraging. My question is, I wasn't clear on whether students have access to the AR tests from home or if they have to go to the school or a library to do
That's
that.
what's exciting is Dr. Cohn has a very strong partnership with Accelerated Reader Renaissance Learning and was able to work closely with Joanne Budewick, and we were able last year to provide access. I don't think they do this anywhere else for our students anywhere. If they're traveling throughout the United States or throughout the world, as long as they can get on to our website, they are able to take a AR test. So,
Wow.
And we shut it off at the end of August to roll up our data. And let me tell you, our phones and emails we're getting lots of emails, aren't we? Because parents are saying, wait a second, we still have tests to take. So then we let them take them for the next couple weeks. So they love this. So I'm hoping that, Renaissance Learning will continue to let us do this throughout the summer.
That's great. Also wanted to say thank you to the parents and students for coming tonight because it makes it so real to hear your voices. Thank you.
And thank you for your support with
Director
this
Lassane,
program.
you had one more question?
Yes. Also want to thank the parents, but she is so right. It makes it so real when you come and you say something. So it says to me that you want this to continue, right? We want this to continue. We launched the program in 2015 with focus on the book Wonder for Bullying. Will we continue with looking at themes such as that in the future years as we go forward? When we launch a book like for middle school students, or in the next year are we going to be looking at thematic, theme-related books?
So it's interesting you asked this question, because just a couple hours ago I was at Everett High giving the staff presentation about the board's conversation, and the librarian was so excited she applied for a grant so that some of her teachers could facilitate book studies this summer to try to get more high school students around different topics and themes. So if students are interested in a particular area, a teacher would lead that book study and then another teacher. So she has 4 teachers right now signed up who are interested in leading these book studies around themes. Also, if you remember on that one slide I said access to books. So the librarians, we always ask the librarians, what are students interested in? What books do you want us to get? And as many as we can, we try to add to the libraries. And the 5th to 6th grade, we have no intention of ever removing Wonder unless there's a better book around that topic. But when we researched that, that was the best book out there at the time, and I think it still is. And now I think there's a movie coming out here soon that aligns with that book.
Oh, wow.
To follow on, as we roll out devices, are we looking at more ebooks as an option?
Many of our librarians have already offered that to our students, and many of our students access that. They have ebooks, and I'd have to get Joanne to help me, but you want to come up here, Joanne, and answer that question?
Yeah,
I mean,
they have a robust,
and with our partners, we have many different opportunities for kids to access digital books.
Our public libraries have a fantastic ebook collection, and we were actually just talking back there about high school using Alexi, because he's here, and talking about how do we use the digital platform to get them engaging in dialogue about books in the digital world. And so just already tonight brainstorming, and we have a fabulous group of librarians, and they've really increased reading throughout the year. So how to transition that into summer is what we're working on, but the ebook collections are growing.
Good. I had
Thank
one
you, Joanne.
further question. I feel like in the past we've seen some data on summer slide with some of the testing that happens in the fall, and then being able to measure it from the previous year, and then summer reading, and then do we still collect that data, or?
Yes, you see that in about 2 months. So Dr. Matthews will take a look at the student when she collects the DRA data.
Okay.
So we'll get that to you in a couple of months. We aren't able to connect it to this presentation because we don't have all the DRA data.
Right.
But that's what we connected it to. Last year was the first year we were able to do that.
Okay,
So
great.
good
Thank
memory.
Any further questions? No? Okay. Thank you very
Let's thank the
much.
students and parents one last time.
And with that, we will now take our 15-minute break and resume at 6:14. Okay, I think we're going to reconvene here. And we are continuing with information and discussion. And at this point, we're on 11.02 boundary revision process for elementary number 18. I believe Mr. Gunn is going to walk us through that.
Yes, I am. Good evening. So tonight I will be giving you an update on the boundary revision process for elementary number 18. As you well know, elementary 18, the construction was funded by the 2016 bond. We are in design on that, planning to go out to bid for the construction this spring in about 4 or 5 months actually, and be done with the construction about a year later. And so this process, Gerard Holtzman has been heading up the process, and we're planning for him to continue that all the way through with other staff involved, but Gerard is pretty much heading that up. So what we're going to do tonight is update you on the plan that we've developed to bring back to the superintendent and then to you a recommendation for boundary revisions for the new elementary school. And then we'll also certainly have an opportunity for you to ask questions and provide comments or guidance on any of this if you'd like. The first slide after the intro there was, this one are some excerpts from our school district's capital facilities plan. In that capital facilities plan, there's a section called the Educational Program Standards. And this section in that portion of the document is related to school boundaries. So in other words, the context of this is when we do boundary changes, this is what our plan says should be considered. So the first bullet there is the potential impacts, both positive and negative, of any boundary changes should be carefully evaluated. I think that's pretty self-evident that would be the case. Boundary changes should only be implemented after appropriate input and discussions with all of the affected parties. Certainly the community as well as the parents and staff of the schools should be provided information and an opportunity for engagement on that. Natural or man-made barriers to safe and efficient routes should be taken into consideration, both pedestrian as well as vehicular. This is certainly related to major roads where there's a lot of traffic, but also I'm thinking of the Boeing freeway intersection with Interstate 5. That is a man-made barrier that really limits our transportation and pedestrian access north-south. For example, in the Eastmont neighborhood, there are no roads that connect from the south to the north, so it's really difficult to think about having forcing students or parents to transit that as part of a boundary process. Here's another 3 items from that portion of the capital facilities plan. It is important, especially at the elementary school level, to ensure students are able to attend schools located within close proximity to their own neighborhood. So this is the concept of neighborhood schools. And if possible, all students living in a neighborhood should be able to attend the same schools. Second item, boundary changes should be made in the context of long-term solutions, and short-term solutions should be avoided. At the end of that bullet, there's some red colored words there, and that is meant to indicate that in this particular boundary process, how we're responding to that criteria is that we are using enrollments out and capacities out 5 years. So from now, we're actually going to be using capacities and projected enrollments in 2022 to target the boundary process. Otherwise, it's very, very likely we would use the current capacities and enrollments, and then a year later have to start adding portables and all. So, and then the last one on this page is that the large-scale boundary changes should be concluded about a year ahead of time, is what we usually use, but certainly enough lead time to allow families and school staff and our systems to plan and prepare. So in our case here, we have a schedule, and I'll show this to you in a few slides, and we plan to have the process brought back to you for your approval of the boundaries in October of 2018, which is about 11 months prior to the opening of the school. And then this is a final guiding principle suggested by a school district summer intern, Scott Peace. I'm sure you remember Scott. He came back and worked for us for various departments this last summer in certain areas, and we asked for him to work with us for a couple of weeks on how to identify and deal with equity issues in school boundary processes, because we knew we were heading into this. And so Scott suggested this language be also considered. And by the way, when I say considered, we plan to provide these guiding principles to the boundary committee for their work in doing the boundary process. So Mr. Peace has recommended that we add the language that says boundary changes should only be made or should be made only after studying where inequities might lie in the current boundaries and potential boundary changes. And changes that create new or perpetuate existing inequities within the district should be avoided. Part of the work that Scott did for us while he was here, he went out and we asked him to interview every principal in our school district to have them tell him where they thought that there might be some inequities in our current boundaries at all grade levels in the district. So Scott collected all that information. He's going to be providing that to the boundary committee as well. All right. So this slide deals with a question that I have talked with a number of board members here about since we passed the bond, and that is, when will we be opening up the boundaries or implementing the boundaries for elementary number 19? When it opens in the fall of 2019, or should we wait until after we finish the phased modernization at Woodside and use that time to vacate Woodside and move all those kids to the new elementary school? Pros and cons on both sides. What I wanted to do here was to tell you where we are currently with our assumption, and that is that we would open up the new elementary school in fall of 19, and that's when we would have the new boundaries go into effect. And for a couple of reasons. As I said, there are pros and cons, but the enrollment at Woodside Elementary is going to be about 735 at that time, and that, if we were going to move all those kids and vacate that school, move them into the new elementary school, we'd have to move probably 6 to 8 portables with them. And so if we left those students at Woodside, we wouldn't have to move any portables, because basically when you open up the new elementary school in the fall of 19, you're going to see here in a few minutes, the numbers would say that we're going to draw off about 200 to 250 from Woodside to go to the new elementary school. So by making that boundary change in fall of 19, it would give immediate relief to Woodside as well as 4 or 5 other schools in the South End. They would get relief from portable expansion, from us having to add portables anyway, and from enrollment in fall of 19 instead of waiting a year or two later when Woodside would be done with the modernization there. So it's actually the least expensive as well as the one that made the most sense given all of the enrollments and capacities down there. This is a schedule that shows the boundary process, and as usual, right now we are where the star is at this location. And we have already gone through a process to select a facilitator, and I'll tell you about him in just a few minutes. But you can see from this chart up here that the boundary committee will begin meeting towards the end of the month, and then they will be working all the way up through May. We would like to have their work done before the end of the school year so that we can bring back to you before the end of the school year recommendation, and then actually have you approve it probably after the summer. So first thing after the school year starts a year from now. During this process, we plan to have 2 community engagement times. The first one would be probably in February. We're not quite sure of the specific date, but that would be the time we would tell the community to, or ask them to come in and tell us what they want us to hear. So without saying, here's a plan, tell us about it, we're going to ask them to tell us what they want us to hear about boundaries. And then after the committee does work in February and March and April, then be able to go back out to the community and say, here's what the plan is, and what do you think about that? The boundary committee members, Jim Dugan, we've selected him. He works with parametrics, engineering, planning, and environmental sciences. He is a former Tacoma school board member, and he is also a person who has about 40 years of design and construction experience in the construction industry. He has done boundary revision facilitation for North Thurston, Tumwater, and twice on 2 different occasions in Tacoma. He works for, as I said, for parametrics, and he is currently managing the services they provide in various areas of facilities to K-12 clients, public ed schools, from Mount Vernon to Vancouver. And he was also with the Austin Company, an international design and construction firm. So he has a lot of experience in construction, and as a school board member. So, and then also he's done the boundary revision process already very successfully. He comes with very high recommendations from his school clients. We also plan to for the whole south end of the district, so say from Jefferson Elementary School South, to have the principal or an assistant principal from each school, as well as a couple of parents or community members from each of the 9 South End elementary schools. We've already contacted the principals and have given them a form that we would ask them. We have asked them to hand out to some of the parents and community members that they think would make good committee members. So that process has begun. We'll also have Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning South End, Larry Fleckenstein, on the committee, and maybe 1 or 2 others, including perhaps a couple of students, and maybe somebody from like Snohomish County or something. So that's our committee makeup. There will be staff support from a variety of departments, myself, Darcy Walker, Gerard Holtzman, Communications, Leanna Albrecht, Transportation, John Pike and Nancy Brown, and then Learning and Information Technology Services, Pete Johnzek and Senya Yakovlev. I think I pronounced that correctly. This slide is one of this one and the next one are really the most important slides that we'll be giving to the Boundary Committee. This shows the 9 schools in the South End, and as you can see from this column here, number of students over or under capacity. All of these schools are over capacity except for Silver Firs Elementary, and that's within 33 of being over. So all those schools, all the other schools are over capacity. The circled ones, the red circles, are those that are the most over capacity. And the numbers in this column here, 191, 151, 170, and 247, those are the numbers of students at those schools that are beyond their capacity. So one thing you can see here is that is, as the numbers of students over capacity in the South End is 1,140. Even by adding elementary 18 at 550 capacity, we're going to still be in the South End 600 plus students over our capacity at the elementary level, even with opening new elementary number 18, which basically makes the case for elementary 19 in the South End. The next slide is the same information in a different way. It shows the schools in the south end. The circles indicate those schools that are over capacity. The only one that's not circled is Silver Firs. The numbers within the circles indicate the numbers of students over capacity. The red color indicates those that are the most over capacity. So having said all that, you can see that the ones that are the most over in red need to shed a lot of their enrollment overage to the new elementary school. So what you will see in a sense is a counterclockwise migration of enrollment coming ultimately to the new elementary school. So that's the task of the boundary committee, and that's kind of how we'll be describing it to them. That is the end of our update for you, and myself and Darcy and Gerard are here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Directors or student representatives, does anyone have a question for Mr. Gunn or one of the other individuals? Go ahead, Director Wenta.
Yes, thank you. I am convinced that all of us will work for Scott Peace at some point in our careers. Just very impressive young man. Are there any early red flags that we should be made aware of that you are hearing, seeing, concerned about?
None that I can think of that would stand out. I think that I would describe boundary processes as being fairly emotional
Yes.
and impactful to the families. It's easier I think it's easier on our community and on our parents when there's a boundary process that has a new school involved in it. It's even more challenging if there's not a new school and we're just moving them around. So in this case, we do have a new school, and I think that as well as Woodside, so those are going to be two real attractions for people in the process. But I expect there will be people over the course of the next year that are going to come forward and tell us that they have a lot of concerns about change in general. So.
And I look forward to Scott's report on the feedback from the principals about some of the inequities that already exist down there. When we learned when we're busing kids, we moved kids from Woodside to Silver Lake, how far kids were traveling originally to get to Woodside. And so I do hope that we take this opportunity to really do look at, or I guess the question would be, are we looking at the just who's going to go to the new elementary school, or also what makes sense for each of the elementary schools that are down there to make sure they have equitable and reasonable representation of, what's normal, natural lines?
Yes. The boundary committee is going to be charged with considering boundary adjustments for the entire south end of the district at the elementary level. So it's the latter of the two. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because of that consideration for the entire area, are we looking to get more parents or representatives of that area involved in the process too? You said you were going to maybe Snohomish County, but maybe somebody closer to that area, Mill Creek as well, because they're going to be affected?
So right now, the committee makeup would have 2 parents or community members from each of our South End elementary schools.
From each school?
Yes.
Okay, each school. Okay.
So right now, our committee makeup would have us at about 30 people.
Okay.
Mike, can you remind me on this map where we foresee elementary 19?
Yes, and it's it may be easier on the next presentation I'm going to do, but I'll answer the question right now. It is in the far southeast quadrant of the district, basically where the urban growth area has not yet been extended. And it'll become clear in my next presentation, but it's the green area on the lower right-hand corner.
19? 20?
Both. Well, 19, I'm sorry, did you ask about 19? Director Winter? Okay, I thought so. 19 is the plan for it would be in that southeast quadrant.
Any further questions? Director Andrews? Yeah. I had a question, a comment. My comment is I just appreciate the expertise of the facilitator you've chosen, and then also the depth of community and parent members, that every school is going to be representative and that it's going to be a larger group collectively trying to figure out some of these challenges. And my question was about, it sounds like the plan is that sort of day one, you're going to open the school with full enrollment. I've seen other models, maybe more at the high school level, where they start with certain grades. And it doesn't sound like that's going to happen with our elementary school. Is that a model that other districts do in terms of opening new schools, or is that typically at the higher level, or is that just personal choice for districts?
What I have, we've done it here ourselves. I think at Jackson High School when it opened with I think 2 grade levels.
Okay.
So I think it's, from my experience, it's more common at the high school level. At the elementary level, I think that we've normally opened with all grade levels.
That's the plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Forest View open with all grade levels.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Student representatives, any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Gunn.
You're welcome.
I think you can remain standing.
I'm going to grab some papers over there.
Okay. We are now going to move to 11.03. After our work session last Tuesday, we needed to come back and have a little more additional conversation regarding future capital bond planning. And I believe Mr. Gunn's going to walk us through that presentation as well. And then I think we are going to have some further discussion.
Yes, thank you very much for that introduction. Tonight's objective is to review the work product from you and the work you did it a week ago at a work session, and then to have you continue that work at the rear of the room here. We have 2 tables set up with some information about the work that you did a week ago, and then we're going to ask you to continue that work, and ideally by the end of tonight's mini work session, we're hoping to get from you some clear direction on a bond proposal that we'll be bringing back to you on November 7th for in the form of a draft resolution, and then the final would be on November 20, I think it's the 21st. This is a schedule very similar to the one that you just saw with the boundaries, only this one is for the bond and the educational programs and operations levy schedule. This is, as you know from the work session last week, this is one of the graphics that we had up to assist you in your work, and it shows really the major projects that were considered, that have been considered during the process, the cost of each project in millions, and then there were 5 options for you to consider, and then there was a lot more information, but this kind of shows the various options that were chosen. And actually, this is where you ended up, the work product, and this is not a complete list. This is, so far, here is what you indicated to us a week ago. So I'll just briefly run through these. The total so far is $292.6 million, including a new comprehensive high school number 4 with a STEM. By the way, this package so far includes a high school STEM pathway program at each of our 4 comprehensive high schools. So new comprehensive high school number 4, property for future elementary number 20, Everett High School cafeteria modernization, as well as the modernization of the vocational building at Everett High with a STEM pathway program. Cascade High School Science Building modernization with STEM, Jackson High School STEM signature program. This the only high school where it's a standalone STEM project. The other 3 high schools have a larger facilities project to go with them. HVAC control upgrades at 5 sites and at 12 portables, and then electrical system upgrades district-wide. So far, $292.6 million. At your work session a week ago, you also indicated that there were 3 projects that you were considering but you had questions about. So what we've done is prepared for you tonight some information about those questions, and so the next couple of slides will give you that, I hope. Some of the questions that were asked pertain to those 3 projects. There were also some questions asked verbally or in the conversations last week. So one of the questions was the project description for the high school number 4 did not include a full accurate description of the work that we're planning out in the athletic fields, but I just wanted to clarify for you, the current price included in the bond package does include synthetic turf fields at the football field, soccer, baseball, and softball fields. The design of the elementary number 18 anticipates 4 classrooms for growth or K-3 class size reduction might be added to that project if the bond passes. So we want to be ready for that eventuality, and it makes sense that we design in an alternate into the bid, which the architects are working on. The stadium synthetic turf field, Memorial Stadium, the current field, has about 2 years of life remaining. It's very similar, by the way, to the condition of Lincoln Field at Everett High School. We had our Eric Gold from D.A. Hogan, the consultant that we use on our synthetic turf field projects, visit both of those facilities, and his view of the Lincoln Field was that a year, maybe 2, and he was not much more optimistic about the stadium turf either. It's in a sense, it's like an old car. As long as you're willing to repair it, it can last another 6 months or another year. But it is really, they're both wearing out. Here's some information about the differences between the 2014 bond, the 2016 bond and levy, and then the 18 bond. There were, as you can see from this chart, there were 3 different projects that were included in the 2014 bond. And it was actually 2 bonds that both failed, one in February, one in April. One of those projects was the Cascade High School cafeteria, a 1,200 square foot addition, 800 square foot remodel for just under $1 million. So that really took the DECA class, I think 2 classrooms and an office. It remodeled that area, and then it added more, it bumped out the building by about 1,200 square feet, which is about 1.5 classrooms. So that was about $1 million. That was on the bond, the 2 bonds that failed. It was not included on the 16 bond that passed. Another project was 8 new classrooms for enrollment growth for elementary number 18 for at Woodside. That project was also included in the 2014 bond proposals that did not pass. It was not on the 16 bond, and it's not been part of the 18 bond so far. The next project is K-3 class size reduction classrooms. We built in 40 classrooms into the package that went to the voters twice in 2014 that failed. That project was at that time composed of 19 new classrooms, 15 new portables, and 6 remodeled classrooms in the basement area of Hawthorne Elementary School. That was on the 14 bonds that failed, was not on the 16 bond. And then the Cascade High School cafeteria and kitchen remodel for $6 million, we put it on the list because it is now part of the conversation for the 2018 bond. It was not, that project as I've described it was not on the 14 bond or the 16 bond. There is some connection between the first one and the last one, the Cascade High School cafeteria and kitchen remodel for $6 million and the 1,200 square foot addition and 800 square foot remodel at Cascade High School cafeteria. Both projects will well, put it this way, the first project certainly would have added seats. It would have increased the seating capacity in the cafeteria. This last project will likely add some seats, but it would do so if we decide to expand the remodel area into the DECA area and take over space that's not used as a cafeteria right now. That is how it may be able to expand the seating capacity in the cafeteria. If that was the case, we would move those classroom programs to a different series of classrooms in the building. Okay, so the other question that came up verbally was how big was the 2016 bond and levy together? You can see that together they added up to about $239.3 million, very similar to the bond size that failed twice in 2014, 259.4. So they were within $20 million of each other. So far, the 2018 bond is just under $300 million. All right. This slide shows the advice and the themes that were generated over a 2-year period by the community and engagement with staff and the superintendent leadership team and the Capital Facilities Advisory Council and others. So, and basically, we've gone through this already with you at the workshop. Just wanted to reinforce those with you tonight. We also, a week ago, talked about the cost comparisons of our proposed high school number 4 with other local high schools. That's what this slide shows. And we have adjusted the prices of those other projects to be consistent with the price that we're using for, that is the timeline for the midpoint of construction for comprehensive high school number 4. It does show over the kind of the cost range that we are in the upper portion of this range, certainly not at the very top, not at the bottom. What we have done is asked our architects to really kind of target the quality level and the cost level of North Shore High School's. It's the North Creek High School that was just opened in North Shore School District. So you can see that one is just to the left of ours. They're actually within $1 per square feet of each other in terms of cost. So they're really identical. And I just wanted to reinforce the idea that these are cost per square feet for the building areas only. They do not include the site work because the site costs vary so much from site to site that you could not really ever get an apples to apples comparison. So those are the comments I wanted to make for that slide. This is a schedule showing how long it would take to design and permit and build high school number 4, about 4 years. And this shows us opening up, if we stay on track with this, in the fall of 2022. And then this is a schedule showing possible 2018 capital bond design and construction schedule. We would want to modify this based on the final list of projects that you tell us about, hopefully here at the end of this meeting. But we've included I think this represents one of the options that we had presented to you in your workshop last week. So we would be adjusting this based on your final answer. But we did want to show that the construction period for the entire bond would stretch possibly out to 8 years. So that's what we're looking at, is 6 to 8 years, although the majority of the larger projects would be done probably 4 to 5 years out. So that's my presentation for tonight. I thought I would give you an opportunity to ask any questions about the materials that we presented. Before long, though, I would like to move to the back of the room, and I have a work area for you back there, 2 tables, and I have some little cards with projects and dollars written on for you. So
Thank you.
Yes.
Directors, do you have any questions on the material that was presented before we move to the back of the room?
I just have one question. Cascade High, excuse me, high school cafeteria expansion. With high school number 4 opening, will that take any of the overage off of Cascade that they might not need the expansion, or will they need the expansion even with their future enrollment?
So opening the new high school will draw off some of the enrollment at Cascade. We have the ability, right, once we open the new high school, to adjust the enrollments at all 4 high schools down to 1,500. So right away, that would give you 200 or 300 fewer students at Cascade.
Okay.
But we're still talking about the signature programs at the high school might draw additional students throughout the district to that signature program.
Yes, it may. Without knowing which one would be more popular, though, I would predict they would be about equal in terms of their effect on enrollment, because we would have one at each high school.
How much in these numbers, what I'm struggling with right now is the cost escalation factor. So that's my first question is what is the cost escalation if we were looking at $2017 versus $22 and what is, what's that percentage? I know there was a factor of 15 or 18% you had said in the spring that we're expected to tack on. And the reason why I'm asking the question is, what happened if we compress the construction timeline? I mean, that could yield literally millions of dollars in savings.
Yeah. 1 year on our high school project at 4.5%, roughly 4.5% escalation, cost escalation for construction is $8 to $9 million that we could save in a year. That's why we have proceeded already with architect selections and visioning and ed specs even prior to the bond passage. So that it does emphasize the importance of proceeding as soon as we can on these projects. One thing that I haven't done is superimpose that construction schedule on top of the one that we have already for the 2016
Elementary 18
bond and levy projects. So that's what I would do here in a couple of meetings from now, kind of show you how that would all work. What we were really trying to do with that slide is show you that it's going to be probably 6, 7, 8 years before all of that work is done. We would certainly want to get the big project done, the new high school done, as soon as we can. That's why we started on it.
I have a related question to that. I know our schedule is somewhat bound by capacity in your department specifically, and I've seen other districts who have passed bonds for multiple schools literally bill them all at once, and they just hire a whole lot more people.
Yeah.
Is that a potential? Because I can't help but think, and I just don't know the numbers, but to hire individuals to come on board and help with these projects versus the millions of dollars of waiting, 2 and 3 and 4 years in some cases to begin these, I can't help but think that that's a dramatically different cost structure.
It is, and we have been talking with some firms about that do offer that kind of service, and we just
So you'd outsource some of it rather than hire?
We are considering that as an option. The idea of outsourcing some of our the management of these construction projects in order to not delay them.
Appreciate the questions because there is such urgency given the growth down there.
And people, families and voters like to see new schools happen.
To a large degree, our staff is pretty much at capacity with the workload they have.
Yeah.
So.
Right. When are we scheduled to break ground on 18?
Probably March.
March?
Or so. March, April this year. We are I think our schedule shows that we would begin construction in May. We are ahead of that schedule at this time, and I hope we stay ahead.
Any further questions?
I had a question.
All right.
And-
Right?
Sorry.
More?
Oh,
Yes.
the answer may just be a variation of what we've just talked about, but looking at the 36 classrooms at $38 million, that's over $1 million per classroom, and that just seems really high, like a lot of money for one classroom. Is that, this is a projected cost with all the, yeah.
I'm trying to be careful to answer the question asked, so.
Well, as I said, it's probably, the answer is probably, yes, it includes all the projected long-term costs, you know, of building in, costs of building into the future. But I was just reviewing the materials last night and just kind of did some, you know, very simple math. And it's like, that's over $1 million per classroom. That seems like a lot of money, but perhaps that's the cost of an elementary school classroom.
It is the full cost, what we call the project cost, includes sales tax, design fees, permitting, furniture and equipment, as well as the actual construction. So
Okay.
once you get the construction cost, the three big pieces are design fees, sales tax, and furniture and equipment. Those are the three. Those by themselves can add 15 to 20% on top of the construction cost. A couple of other things. Think about this: an elementary school is 26 or 27 classrooms usually, and the cost is for that is much higher than $1 million per classroom. And it's because you have to build all the support areas.
Yeah.
And you have to do all the site work. When you do an addition, you've already built the parking lots and done all the site development. You've built the library, the gymnasium, the office areas. You're just adding classrooms. So when you build a new school, it's a much higher cost per classroom. And portables, I don't know if you did the math on those, but they're over $200,000 per portable classroom.
Right.
Right.
So $1 million, I mean, I realize we're talking
For
portable versus
1 to 4.
permanent, but
something like
that's a big difference.
Yes.
Also, on the slide showing the difference in the Cascade High School remodels, the one that was on the 2014 bond, now I've lost it. It goes from short of $1 million to $6 million. And what is the price increase in that?
Well, they're not comparable projects. They're different.
Okay, how are they different, I guess, is?
The $6 million project is a full replacement of the kitchen and the serving line and a full remodel of the entire cafeteria.
Oh, okay.
The $951,000 project in 2014 was to remodel 800 square feet, which is the DECA classroom area, and to do a little 1,200 square foot expansion.
Okay.
Different projects.
Yep. I didn't realize it was the entire cafeteria and kitchen.
Yeah, and replaces all the equipment in the kitchen as well.
I have one more question, going back to Director Andrews' first question. Is it fair to say that adding classroom space to Woodside and the new elementary, it costs less than adding, for example, a 4-classroom addition to an existing school? Because it will happen when the school is built?
Yes, there should be some economy of scale. I wouldn't think it would be terribly significant in terms of the difference. But if you're building it, there would be an economy of scale that you would achieve at Woodside in the new elementary school.
And then a comment, I was surprised that sales tax is so high since we build schools on taxpayer money, so we have to pay sales tax on the taxes we get from taxpayers.
I am in agreement. We have.
But there's no question there.
Yeah, there's no question there. Okay, directors, are we ready to?
I would like one other question. You said that you were like to ask one more question. You said that you were contemplating or looking into the potential of hiring additional people to start construction on the high school at the same time as 2018. Is that correct what I heard you say? So that you can do simultaneous projects at the same time. You were looking in what the pluses and minuses would be.
Yes.
Okay. And you would be sharing that with the board?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the question wasn't about the high school proper. I think the question was about whether or not we could do a lot of the projects simultaneously. And Mike's response was that it would take more staff to manage those projects. And he's speaking with some firms that do that on a contract basis, which is different than hiring more staff. And he would have to account for the cost of doing that as compared to the escalation. And you frankly never know when the business cycle is going to go through another one of its down strokes, and that could end up saving a lot of money if, not that we would want that to happen, but when we were in a down cycle, everything was coming in under bid and under estimate.
Right. But understanding also what Director Winter mentioned, the cost escalation of waiting an extra year.
Right. Right.
And how much you're going to spend to wait that extra year before you start construction.
Right.
You have to weigh and see what the pluses and minuses are.
Yes, let's go.
Please join me at the rear of the room.
So what we're doing is we have three posters here. Obviously, this is the list that you decided on. So we call it the projects on the list. This is the list, a little bit expanded here, of the projects you had questions about. This is the projects that are not on the list. So very simple. We have one of these little cards made up for each of the projects on the three lists. You can move them around. What we are hoping is that at the end of this activity, that we can look at everything that you've placed here. That is the list for people on their poster. Okay, so we took by the way, this one, portables, we broke it into 4 options, ranging in price from all brand new additions to it's the hybrid. Yeah, this has 16 permanent classrooms, let's see, plus 20 new portables, plus, I guess that's it. And then this is the new portables, all brand new portables to relocate, and then this is to relocate existing portables. So you got a cost range. Again, if you have any questions, let us know. There are pros and cons to each of these. So this is, if you wanted to pick up anything from here and move it that way, here are the projects. This is this list of projects in case, and I didn't think this was going to happen, but if you wanted to take anything from here and put it on one of those, you can do that, but this is taking this up. We'll probably have to cross it out. And then this is projects with questions. So we can also, we have various staff here, Dana, and I know Ken Twain is here for technology questions. Darcy and I are here.
Let me ask if any here has an initial thought on a project. session, and you guys tell me if I'm capturing this correctly, is we felt like 38 was too high because the bumps climbed up so much, and that we did not want to be relocating 36 to use 40 bumps. And so we're somewhere in the middle, and that at least kind of helps eliminate some of those.
One of the big questions that I had is to relocate some portables that have been on campus 10, 15 years might be extremely hard, just because some of them aren't really designed. Some of them aren't designed to be moved, to be comfortable. They become movable to the field, so to speak, you know.
But if one of the first websites that your model, there's 10 weight that's taken off with Silver Lake, there's a potential 11.
Yeah, but sometimes because of the age.
I'm sorry, talking the newer ones.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
those Penny Creek Gateway, those are not.
Yeah, you guys are all right.
Yeah, we're all
The
right.
other ones, it
We're all
would make
right.
sense, the newer ones are.
We be newer used.
Newer used ones, okay.
Yeah.
Not used ones.
But I still think when there's an opportunity for permanent,
Yeah.
it is better than one, especially to build two new elementary schools, we build on them, or we build Penny Creek, and we were able to build a wing and then add portables.
Yeah.
I wonder about, I understand that every school uses Memorial Stadium, but since we have a number of potential modernizations in here, and we were able to do synthetic turf with our modernizations or extra capital money, if that might not fall under potential for modernization, refinancing, it's important, but I wonder if it might not be as necessary as classrooms and cafeterias.
So in my folder, actually I went through it. I have some state funding estimates for our modernization projects. I think the only three rather, that would generate state funding would be Everett High Cafeteria, Everett High Vogue, and Cascade Sundays. So I can give you those figures here in a minute. I will say it's going to be a lot less than we get for North and Woodside. Well, we're probably going to need the state funding from those projects to do the projects to the 60 because of those cost increases that we talked about. We didn't build that kind of escalation into our numbers. So it which illustrates the benefit of not counting on your state funding until that was not pre-spending it.
Spending what you don't have.
And yeah, so that was the other point that I was going to make, is that I would highly recommend not promising that they can do additional projects with this. So let me get those.
What is everybody's comfort level with the dollar? Like 292, if we had 21, that gives us at 3, I can't do math right now, 13.
I'd love to stay below 300. I did walk in the classroom.
If you want to say below 300, that's our problem.
Right.
It's your state funding.
Estimates.
You can see it's not, north of the potential is 10. And it's like 8 or 7. These are like 2. Yeah. Well, you need to do the full modernization. And those are over here.
Can we, I'm just trying to process check. Is there anything that we lost spending on this list? I'm trying to shoot one, so.
honestly, they did it with small, medium size. I have the data, but I would have to get back to the 300. I don't know if that was actually tested. I do know that often it's less about the absolute dollar than it is about tax rates and about the pieces of the bond that excite voters. So projects that are doing really well, the STEM, all the STEM stuff is doing very well on other bonds in other districts that they've seen, and when they pull people across the state, people look very favorably on that, especially older voters, because they see so much effort has been put on the English language arts and math testing and such, that the vocational piece of it has been lost, and to bring some of that back, but in a really modern way, people get really excited about it. I did, and heating and air conditioning, ventilation always do well because people like to see well-maintained schools, and they're very favorable about that. And then, just the work that we've learned from the district is that things that reduce overcrowding. I would have a hard time not making my bills even those kind of customers.
I did Director Mitchell was here. Part of our challenge with all 36 built classrooms is how long it takes to get there. Each year that we don't, we're losing four rookies each year, so we start adding that up. Combination allows us to execute some work.
And that's one reason why Director Winter's comments about simultaneously building several projects at the same time really is a reflection. The people see what's going on, and they have a tendency to say everything's good. But when we just do one project at a time, the questions come up, what are we doing?
We don't.
But that's what they see, one new project. They don't see the air conditioning units being installed. They may not see the roofs being put on, but they hear about the big buildings being built,
One of the offsetting costs is if you install once you need portables because you're displacing those students. Unless it's new space.
Top and bottom are out. So I just want to point out, reinforce what Jeff just said. You take those two out, these two, either one gives you the opportunity to purchase between 20 and 36 new portables, which we could get this coming fall, which gives us the ability to house the K-3 class size teachers this fall.
Well, I just see.
Well, I know we would have the space. Oh, I'm going to jump in and say we would try really hard to get those portables. No absolute promises, but we would work.
You're promising you're always going to have them all in place by fall. It's willing to promise that you'll get it all done.
And one of the dilemmas, I guess, is to know what's going to be on the bond. We could place an order. In order to guarantee that it'll be here by the fall, you need to place the order by Christmas.
Well, and I understand that stuff, and then there's new construction, non-stop, right behind me, 4 houses are becoming 27.
Yeah.
So it's non-stop. But it does make sense for either Woodside or elementary school, I think, to have portables immediately upon being built. And so I lean more towards the 21 million, but I wonder if there is still a happy medium of Woodside and elementary school get their permanents, but everybody else gets portables.
Yes.
Because then they could be built into the construction cost. It'd be less than 21.
That's this one.
It'd be less than 21 if we took out both of these.
Oh, the original.
Yeah.
You have that north-south.
Yeah. We put it in the north end, just so that we wouldn't have all portables in the north end and permanent in the south end. And thing is, remember what I said about, even with once we open the elementary, it was gonna be 600 over capacity and stuff. Some of those may well be a wood side in the elementary, meaning they may have portables right away.
I would hate to see, or just like what you said, I would hate to see in a new construction school that we have any portables there. I mean, but unless they're out by the field, because it's PE classes or something like that, but not primary classes. I would hate to see.
We've got so much growth down there.
I know.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw out a suggestion, because sometimes rather than just talk about everything, you do that and that, and add that on your 319. And if this, we heard from our students that it was half of
So we move this one and this one over to that. We had 27 million.
And there's no way to fine tune this number any better.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, yeah, we
somewhere in between.
Sure, we could go in one portable increments.
Somewhere in the 11. I've been,
the only one of these that includes two parking lots, because the idea is that in this scenario, we were going to be adding permanent classrooms in Jefferson and Emerson, both really deep, larger parking lots. So if you had 4 classrooms in each one, you're going to want larger. So, but the other 3 did not have parking lot expansions, because the idea is to reduce the price and try to do it for less. If you want, I could add this on 27, 292. $319.6.
And we have capacity in that each half is great, that's a big number.
319.
That we can say, like, for keeping a steady factory.
Model for 340.
If we had to go that high.
if we have to go that high.
It kind of feels like we're going to be over 300%. Instead of 21 million, instead of 38, just.
I don't think 10 million, I think it's going to depend on the projects, but I think it's going to max rate. But I don't think the average rate is 10 million.
It's a big number, it's just a big number regardless. And I wonder how permanent classrooms versus portables, because people are tired of portables. That actually have permanent classrooms, how that might,
And we get that conversation too.
Yeah.
I think people pretty much understand that you can do everything for the classrooms.
You're gonna have portables.
You got to have
Yeah.
because
I'll say 19.6.
Well, does that respond to what you're saying, Carol?
Or were you wondering?
19 versus the other 10 million? You and Ted were saying that the other 10 million, what you're
It's
there.
another 17.
Oh,
It is another 17.
Yeah, the 17.
So 3/5.
it's all.
So, seems like last time it was the middle of our district, the Cascade High School area. We had difficulty getting the votes.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is how much will it help us to put the cafeteria remodel in? At the expense of possible permanent classrooms, or, you know, cafeteria, you know, maybe we do the cafeteria and then the other 313.
But, as you said, we had problems with that group of families voting positive before.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's a generate.
Fortunately, what you don't know is what happened.
Right, right. They historically not turned out.
But if we can do a better communication plan in high school, as far as what they're going to get, they may come up even more so. I'm kind of on the fence about this. It's a large number. So, somewhere in between.
But I think that what they said though about the north end and south end, in between the Jefferson parking lot, we didn't like that for years.
And then the north end is getting a very good STEM project with the Everett Vocational Building. That's a big one. And the cafeteria at the high school, modernization there. They are getting a large portion of this. Wow.
I wouldn't say that.
Understood, because the growth is in the south end.
They're getting two
But
projects.
they're getting, that's so, $33 million is a lot of money.
I would say that the buildings there are,
Say again?
the buildings that are in high school, the boat building and cafeteria are
In worse shape. Mm-hmm.
so the need is.
When you walk on the floor, you can feel it flex.
Yeah.
So, is it fair to say that walked out of last week's workshop with a $48 million question, which is represented here, that we should pass? That might be one choice. But right now, we're discussing the so we kind of trim that gap a little bit, but let's test it and see where that points.
I said we take a long package tonight, and then 80 days, and then the 21st. Yes, yes.
Well, and that's what
Yeah.
this one's a different, I think we're going back and forth over $20 million. I think we're gonna, that's in that range regardless.
The resolution's going to the county in early December. I can't remember, I thought it was a year now, but it's in December, so we do have it.
It's after the board.
I have to.
Do you think it's early?
Yeah, I think it was right around the date of the board meeting, so.
That's why we did it last second.
Yeah, we always.
No, that's a good date.
Yeah.
It's gonna be then, because we're starting to go up against, maybe to tell people what's on.
Yes.
do you think about this whole program?
Opportunity here.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what Director Andrews was saying with, once we approach 300 million, then how much more can we push that before it becomes too much? And I think once we get past maybe 330, that might be too much. So I think what we have right now with the 21 instead of 38 million safer bet.
It puts us in a better position to not go close to that 340 to keep having to push out financing. Yeah. So the lower we can make it, the extra.
I appreciate it.
Anybody else?
No. Thank you.
Thank you. Always appreciate all those.
Check it out, Peter.
Brings a little bit of power there. Oh, take that away.
Yeah, just.
Lawrence? Resonates.
Larry?
Okay, we're almost there. Brings us to new business, section 13.0, and Mr. Fleckenstein has 3 policy reviews for us tonight.
Yeah. Well, the proposed revisions to Board Policy 1410, executive or closed sessions, are based on the WASDA model policy revisions in response to substitute House Bill 1417, which now allows school boards to hold an executive session during a regular or special meeting to consider information regarding the security and vulnerability of a district's computer and telecommunication network infrastructure. Under these circumstances, to discuss factors related to the vulnerability of the district's data security in an executive session, the board must comply with data security breach notification requirements, and legal counsel must be available to the board during the executive session. The proposed revisions to Policy 1410, executive or closed sessions, for your consideration this evening have been reviewed by legal counsel and the superintendent's cabinet prior to tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Directors, do you have any questions, or student representatives regarding this policy?
Very timely addition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hearing none, we will move it to second reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Second, proposed revisions to Policy 3143, District Notification of Juvenile Offenders, are provided for the board's consideration to further enhance our policy to more explicitly comply with the language found in RCW 1340-215, Section 5, that states, a convicted juvenile sex offender shall not attend a public or approved private elementary, middle, or high school that is attended by a victim or a sibling of a victim of the sex offender. The proposed revisions to Policy 3143 have been reviewed by legal counsel and the superintendent's cabinet prior to tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Directors, any questions regarding Policy 3143? Hearing none, we will move this as well to second reading.
And third, the proposed revisions to Policy 3413, Student Immunization and Life-Threatening Health Conditions, are provided for the board's consideration to further enhance our existing policy to comply with the language found in RCW 28A 210-110 and the guidelines set by the Office of the Secretary of the State of Washington for school districts and educational service districts records retention schedule version 8.2, and you can find the reference on page 45. The proposed revisions to Policy 3413, Student Immunization and Life-Threatening Health Conditions, have been reviewed by legal counsel and the superintendent's cabinet prior to tonight's meeting.
I have a question. When we start talking about a principal, isn't the chief administrator the principal? Is it just a play on words, or does the law now say specifically principal?
We had that same discussion in cabinet. And for most of our schools and school buildings, the chief administrator there is labeled as the principal. However, if we were to have programs within our district or locations that are overseen not by a school principal but another chief administrator, we'd want to keep that language wide enough to encompass all of our programs where these records are held.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, we will move this as well to second reading. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brings us to upcoming agenda items. Dr. Cohn, what are our upcoming agenda items?
You have under item 14.1 a special meeting on November 1st. The topic is social emotional support. You're going to receive an update on the district's work and direction in that arena, and that is a morning special meeting. Item 14.2 is your regular meeting scheduled for November 7. You're going to receive an instructional materials overview and an updated adoption schedule as your strategic progress monitoring item. It's an item that you asked be put on your agenda annually a year or so ago. You'll have 3 policies for second reading. Larry, do we have any others that are coming up for first reading, do you think, at that meeting? November? Couple of them, okay. And then you're going to receive Jeffrey's long-range fiscal outlook, your bond and educational programs and operations levy resolution drafts, and then I believe we'll have a contract for Fairfax Hospital. Probably there will be some other items that will be added to your consent agenda, as is so frequently the case. That is it for item 14.2.
Thank you. That takes us to section 15.0, executive or closed session, and we do not have an executive or closed session this evening, which brings us to section 17.0. We are adjourned.